My name is Stephen Bulger. We opened the Stephen Bulger Gallery in 1995. We specialize in photographs. We maintain an inventory of about 16,000 photographs. We also have a bookstore, and we do exhibitions that change every month. They're mostly solo shows, but at least once a year we do thematic-based group shows. I'm interested in historical photographs as well as contemporary. In addition, we have a cinema called Camera, and it seats 50 people, and on Saturday afternoons we show films that are free to the public that we think relate to whatever the current exhibition is. And it's also a space that we can use to have artist talks and book launches and what have you. So there's a variety of activities that go on at the gallery. The Contact Festival started as a way to educate large numbers of people about photography. When I opened my gallery in '95, I very quickly learned that a lot of people in Toronto didn't seem to know very much about photography. And I became envious of cities like Paris and Montreal that had exhibitions called Mois de la Photo, where there were these large celebrations of photography that seemed to encompass those entire cities. And it was very celebratory, very educational, and very interesting for people like me that love photography. And Toronto did seem to have a festival for almost everything else, so I thought, why not have one for photography? So I approached Judith Tater and her partner Darren Alexander, and then together we approached Linda Book, and the four of us worked to create our own little photography festival for Toronto. And we thought May would be a good time of year to do it. And the first year, I guess, was 1997, I think was the first year of the festival. And we had hoped to have about 20 different venues sign on. We had a little over 40, so it started as a great success. And since that time, it's grown by leaps and bounds, that it's coming up on its 20th anniversary. And it's become the world's largest photography festival. So there's hundreds of photographers that are represented around the city in more than 150 venues, from exhibitions large and small that are in all of the top museums of the city, as well as being in almost every cafe that you'll come across. There's billboard projects, lots of public interventions, and it's a real sort of awakening of spring in the city, and that celebration happens through photography in Toronto. Toronto as a photo scene has really come into its own, I'd say, in the last 5 or 10 years. It's always been a big part of the city. The AGO had exhibitions of photography in the 20s, and especially in the 60s and 70s, there was lots of different outfits and artist-run centers that really celebrated photography, and there was a lot of photographic activity, like through places like Toronto Photographers Workshop and what have you, and Gallery 44. And what I've been noticing over the last 10 years, though, it's the interest of what's going on here is sort of expanded beyond the Greater Toronto area and now encompasses everyone around the world. Like a lot of what happens here gets spoken about in other parts of the world that also have active photography communities. So in that sense, I think Toronto's really started to become one of the international players, and especially in the last 10 years, you look at the acquisitions that the Art Gallery of Ontario has been able to have, the presence of the Archive of Modern Conflict in Toronto, the recent opening of the Ryerson Image Center, and that whole burst of and all the postgraduate studies programs going on in photography that are happening at Ryerson University as well as OCAD-U. It's really a very fervent scene right now, so it's quite exciting. In terms of embarking on a career that involves showing your work in galleries like mine, I often get asked, what do I look for? Is it subject matter, what have you? And in actual fact, we're all looking for the photographer first, that we're interested in people that have a unique and consistent vision, that have a particular viewpoint on the world that is telling us something. And it's those people that have the ability to communicate quite effectively through photography that people like me find very interesting. So it's sort of the exact opposite of what magazines are looking for, which in many cases is a much more objective viewpoint of the world. So, you know, it's what does that scene look like? People like me are more interested in knowing what the photographer felt about that place. The work that I've been thinking about a lot lately is an exhibition that opens at the gallery tomorrow afternoon, actually, by Sarah Ann Johnson. It's a series called Wonderlust, and it's a photographic series about intimacy. And her methodology is to become introduced to people that are willing to have her photograph them in the nude. And in many cases, the couples will decide to engage in sexual activities while Sarah remains in the room photographing them. What she does after that is try to use the photographic print as a starting point to try to figure out if she can illustrate some of these emotions that we all share when being sexually intimate. And it's interesting for me the way she came into the project, because it's because she wasn't very comfortable talking about sex that she decided to make a photographic project about it to see if that was a better way for her to communicate her ideas about the subject. And each photograph is quite remarkable in whether it's, some of them are quite beautiful in that they, she takes the photograph and adds glitter to the surface of the photograph to make it a little bit more abstract. And sometimes she's scratching parts of the photographs away. And with each one of them, that it's a visualization of what it feels like, but also it hides the identity of the people in the photographs to an extent that as a viewer you can actually feel yourself in the picture much more readily because you're not looking at someone else's face. Well, in terms of tips, I'd say what to photograph or where to photograph. Obviously it depends on the type of thing that you like, whether you like, you know, urban architecture or nature scenes. There's been a lot of books that have been done on Toronto, and I think a lot of those you could see online and what have you. So I think in terms of a starting point, you might look at the types of pictures other people have taken of Toronto and then get a sense of, you know, the places that you want to visit through there. You know, if you like photographing urban scenes, a great thing to do is go to one end of Queen Street on the streetcar, and then once you hit the far end, get back on and go all the way back the other end. That it runs through the middle of the historical part of Toronto, and it's a really interesting and easy way to see a lot of the city. If you're interested in looking for photography exhibitions in Toronto, I think if you're coming in May, that's when the Contact Festival is on, so really you can see a lot of photography at that time. But what you can also do is go online to the Contact site, even outside of May, and get a sense of who in the city participates in that festival. And many times you'll find that the galleries are pretty well described, so that you'll get a sense of which of those galleries that are in Contact show photography throughout the entire year. Because there are galleries, large and small, that have very active photography programs. You know, and certainly you'd want to visit the Art Gallery of Ontario. The Royal Ontario Museum also has a fine photography collection. The Ryerson Image Centre has become the real big hot point of the photo scene in Toronto right now. And there's more than 20 galleries that regularly show photography in Toronto.